Hi, my name is William Hodges, and this is my English project. So, for this project, I was inspired by the poet Allen Ginsberg and his Supermarket in California poem that we had to read. When I was thinking about what to do for this, I remembered in the times we are right now with COVID going on and how many people are going to the supermarket, going there, get their stuff, and coming back home, how this could be used in a poem just like Allen Ginsberg did. So I'm going to read my poem and go over some of the lines that I wrote. I titled this poem A Supermarket in a Pandemic by William Hodges. As I leave the bunker I call home in search of some milk and bread, thoughts are spreading and affecting inside my head. Who is this disease called COVID and what does it want? How many people will die and how long will it taunt? When I arrive at the neighborhood market, I am met with unfamiliar faces. Faces with masks and masks for faces. Walking down the aisles filled with all sorts of food, I notice people are avoiding each other, but not trying to be rude. As I pick out my rations to bring back to quarantine, I remember my loved ones and how much they mean. When I get to the finish line, ready to check out, I am met with no person, just a scanner and a bag for takeout. I get back in my car with my food for the next 2 weeks. Until I run out, I'm in quarantine, rinse and repeat. Now I'm going to go back over the poem and analyze the words and tell you some of the thoughts I put behind this to come up with this poem. So the first two lines, as I leave the bunker I call home in search of some milk and bread, thoughts are spreading and affecting inside my head. So I chose the word bunker because in a wartime or when you're fighting an enemy, you're usually stuck in a bunker, you're hunkered down, you're with your family or your teammates, basically. So I chose that word to give it like a warlike sense to it. And then I chose milk and bread because those are the two things I usually run out when things are going crazy, when people are locked down, there's a tornado coming, there's a big storm where people have to stay in their house for a good time, or like a snowstorm, something like that. And then thoughts are spreading and affecting inside my head. I used the thoughts as like a virus, basically spreading and affecting my head and my psyche, like causing me to worry, causing me to panic, causing other people to panic and stuff like that. And then the next two lines, who is this disease called COVID and what does it want? How many people will die and how long will it taunt? For these two lines, I basically personified COVID, calling it out, basically questioning it, like you question an enemy to figure out like what it wants and what's it doing here. And then how many people will die and how long will it taunt? And this line basically giving reverence to those who have died and like basically just remembering those. And how long will it taunt? Basically, how long will this disease be here? How long will this virus take control of our lives? Will there be a vaccine? If it works, how long will it go away? If it doesn't work, will it stay here? Just things like that. And then the next two lines, when I arrive at the neighborhood market, I'm met with unfamiliar faces, faces with masks and masks for faces. So for this, I use a juxtaposition for neighborhood and unfamiliar because when you're in your neighborhood, you see those, you know, people, your neighbors, of course, so you know them, you might hang out with them on the weekends, just stuff like that. But when I went to the supermarket, I call them unfamiliar because they had masks on because I wasn't used to them wearing masks on. It's harder to recognize them with masks on. That's why I said that. And then faces with masks and masks for faces. Basically, people had on masks, so their faces were covered in masks, and their masks were basically their faces covering up their emotions, so you couldn't really get a read on them. You can't tell if they're worried or if they're just going on or what's going on with them. All you see with their eyes and is like you see basically like a blank face. The next two lines, walking down the aisle is filled with all sorts of food. I notice people are avoiding each other but not trying to be rude. Basically, these two lines are like from like a point of view, like walking down the aisles, you're looking at your food you're gonna get. But then when you're walking down, usually people are walking past you and stuff. But in this situation, people are like avoiding you, waiting until you're done with your done like whatever section you're on, so then they can come get it after you left. But they're also not trying to be rude because everyone knows like no one's rude in this situation. Is everyone just has to social distance to help out the whole situation. The next two lines: as I pick out my rations to bring back to quarantine, I remember my loved ones and how much they mean. So basically what I'm doing in this situation is just thinking about like my loved ones who I'm actually like protecting by going out and getting the groceries for those that are older and one or like more susceptible to the virus. Next two lines: when I get to the finish line and ready to check out, I am met with no person, just a scanner and a bag for takeout. Basically, when I'm finished getting my groceries, usually you go and you check out and there's someone there that scans it and puts in the bags for you. But since this pandemic is going on, and so no one's like touching anything of yours, you get to do that on your own. So it's kind of like lonely in a way. You scan it, you put in your own bag, and then you put in your cart, and then you leave. And then I said for the last two lines, I get back in my car with my food for the next 2 weeks until I run out. I'm in quarantine, rinse and repeat. Basically, it's like a monotonous thing, stuck in quarantine, going out basically once every 2 weeks to go get food and come back, and then you're staying at your house, just doing the same thing over and over again. And that's what I meant by those lines, and that's how I came up with it. Thank you.